Right, well, hello Fiona.
Hi James.
I mean, we've known each other for a long time now. I mean, you're looking, right, 5 or 6 years possibly, and it occurred to me, I've never actually sat down and asked you how your mirror touch synesthesia affects you on a day-to-day basis, which is something that's certainly close to me because I deal with my own synesthesia. I used to think mine was intrusive, but yours is pretty amazing. Really, I mean, where I'd like to start here, to give me a better understanding, is can you describe your, we'll start at the beginning, can you describe your first mirror touch experience?
I would say it was in my father's garden. He built this pond at the end of the garden, and dragonflies used to fly on the pond, and I used to sometimes lie there on a blanket, and I could feel as if I was the dragonfly flying. And also my mom with, this is my youngest experiences with, she used to make potato shapes, and she'd hold the shape, and I always used to feel as if that was me making the shapes. But in terms of, television first came to South Africa and it was around about, the late 70s, and our family got a television and we watched a program or a film called Ring of Bright Waters. And that was the first time it really stood out that I couldn't watch certain things, because in the film the farmer was busy using a spade and cultivating the soil and things, and he'd killed the otter with the spade, and I was horrified at that point because it felt as if I had killed the otter. And my mom couldn't console me. It went on for about a month. She kept trying to say, Fiona, remember the 3 F's, feelings are fickle, Fiona. She used to say it after me. It was only a film, it's not real, but it felt very real to me. So it was really the first time where watching something, everything else felt pretty natural.
What was your parents' reaction to all of this, though? Did they support you? Did they?
It was different. And my mom got to the point, because I was battling to manage my emotions. I was still developing, and my mom used to take me to church for them to lay hands on me. And my father's way was to try and desensitize. So, because I would empathize with animals as well. So my father would, he bred birds. So he would use my hands to physically wring a bird's neck. Because he would say, you're not prepared for the world. You're too sensitive. So it was his way of trying to make me more.
How did that make you feel?
It wasn't nice at all. I felt for days as if I was a bird killer, bird killer hands, it's.
And did you used to tell other people though? I mean, maybe friends at school or other relations?
I learned, those types of things, especially being taken to a church where people laid hands on you, that, for me it was embarrassing, it wasn't nice, and it taught me not to talk about it. It was something I wanted to hide, I didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Wow, that's pretty intense. I mean, this is obviously a very, very big part of your life, it always has been. You've had it since you were a child, as long as you can remember. I mean, has it shaped your habits and your development as an adult?
I would say it has. I mean, at a young age I was taken to see a psychologist because my mum was feeling I was becoming antisocial. And that was, again, the emotion, being able to control emotion. I would say what it's done is it's taught me, I've made my own choices. So I left home at a young age. I choose where I live, who I socialize with, what I do. So it very much, all my choices of how I live my life. I don't have a television, because it's too much, I get too tired.
I was going to say, you live in Liverpool, and I mean, Liverpool's a fairly chaotic, noisy city. I mean, wouldn't you rather be out in the country somewhere?
Well, I technically am, because I live near a park, and every morning, really early, I disappear into the park with my dog. I try and steer clear of people and other dogs, and I just enjoy the birds. And something I love to do in the summer is I lie on my back, and it's the way I relax, is I just look up at birds flying, and I feel as if I am flying. I feel the movements. I feel so.
What about at work, though, for example? How do you cope with it at work? Have you had to have special arrangements made to get through the day?
I used to live in London. That's part of the reason why I moved north, because I couldn't cope with... I used to feel battered on the tubes and just too many people. At work, I've had it before where I've sat and there's been a photocopier with a lot of people moving. And the photocopier, actually, the sound of it, I've got other synaesthesia, so it felt painful on my back. So I was moved because of the photocopier. I've been moved because of it all. But in terms of people, I choose to work with people with learning difficulties and that's part of, it's part of, I think, where I never felt validated. And it's part of me. I teach them, use of technology and expose them to all different types of technologies available, what they can do with it. And it's part of, I feel self-validation working with the individuals, but I also feel what it feels like.
Was that a conscious decision, though, to go into that job?
Yeah, conscious decision. And I work with animals as well. But where it hasn't always been great is I used to do work for Employ. I did field research there as well as part of my degree. But there was an individual who used to come in with a skin condition, and the minute he came in, because I used to work with him, I'd feel this terrible feeling against my skin, and I used to find that very hard.
I was going to say, you groom dogs, don't you? Do you get the same effects with animals? Is it the same? Is it the same intensity?
It's not quite the same intensity, except that if I've worked with someone else before that groomed, how the animals held, how they feel when they're touched, it really matters to me. And if I see someone else, I don't always feel as if I'm inflicting the touch, so to speak. I'll feel like I'm the animal being touched, and I'd handle that a bit differently or something. In terms of the grooming and me grooming the animal, it's part of it is I want to make things better for the animal and the owner.
Right, okay.
So the owners own the pets. They get very concerned about the pets. So it's that part of it is.
Do you experience this while dreaming as well? Is it a 24?
Yeah. Anything I experience in my daytime, I generally dream about it. So. If I've been, I'll dream about dogs, or I'll dream about people. I sometimes have very strange dreams about, and that was interesting. You're talking about the amputation. I'll have dreams like that where I've got another or a longer arm or something, and I'm feeling pain, and I feel the pain in the dream. So I sometimes do feel physical pain in dreams.
And on TV and observing artworks, for example, you get mirror touch as well. Because I noticed earlier on you were flinching and turning away from large sections of that sensorium test. I don't know if it's because I was in it, but you were certainly looking away a lot.
Yeah.
Now, is that because?
Partly I try and if I'm going to watch that before I talk, I'm going to be quite tired and drained. It's irritated, and I didn't want to. So one of my ways of managing is that you just don't look at it. But in terms of films, and this is something I've been wanting to correct, is there was that Guardian article about the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
Me so-called empathising with Lisbeth Salamander. What it was is a friend had taken me to actually see the film. I didn't know what it was going to be about. And as I always did when I was a child, when it started, it was horrific. So I covered my hands, my ears, tried to not watch. And at one point, it went a bit quiet, so I looked up, and what I saw was Niels Boesman in a fetal position, after she'd retaliated, tied up in this fetal position. And it was a shocking sight, obviously, but what happened is I would go to sleep for about a week afterwards and wake up as if I was him in that fetal position. And that's the thing with mirror touch, is it doesn't, you can't choose who you're going to empathise with. It's what you see. So it doesn't matter what colour, what gender, if there's someone over there doing that. So if I look at that, I get this feeling like there's a touch over there. It can be a man doing that. There's no.
Well, I'll tell you something that you mentioned to me once. It was something to do with visiting an art gallery, and you said that you could get inside paintings, and that must be absolutely incredible.
That's the part. I never change having mirror touch for these things, for the nature, these things that I see is if I go in a gallery, like the example I think was about the National Gallery, and there was, I can't remember who the artist was, but it was a boy and he had his foot in water, and I could feel as if my feet were in water, my toes were touching water. That's what it's like. Is anything I see, it's a real experience, and that's hard to explain, but it's a real experience.
Must be amazing. That I'd love that. I feel jealous. These experiences that you have they grown stronger over the years? Have they got weaker? Stayed consistent?
I wouldn't say that they've changed dramatically. Only the fact that I can manage better. I've learned. I've obviously developed, learned to manage my emotions, because before, if somebody's in a room and they're angry, I'd feel the anger. You feel the emotion, but it's dealing with it. So I didn't used to deal with emotion very well, and so it's managing it and strategies for coping. Also, being able to enjoy and celebrate it. So I used to view it once as it's a gift, it's a curse, that kind of thing. But I don't anymore, because I know I can remove myself from situations, I can change my sensory experience. So,
how does this actually affect personal relationships? I mean, has it affected personal relationships?
It has, in the sense that because I'm very sensitive, the person you're with, you can reflect them a lot more. It's almost like you feel like you're them. So the emotional attachment, and everything. So I've lived a lot of my life on my own. And I'll go back to my childhood there, because it's something that's really stuck with me, is my uncle. My uncle's passed away, so I can talk about my uncle. But I was the first one to identify from a very young age when he was having an affair, and I approached him on it, and he was utterly like, "How did you know?" And then once we'd had this full-rounded discussion, he sat me down and he said, "Fiona, you have a gift. You have something that you can use as a weapon against people, or for positive, for goodness." And he said, "Promise me you'll always use it for goodness."
And how old were you?
I must have been about, I was between 8 or 10 at the time. I was very young, 8 or 10 at the time. And the other thing he said to me was that, and this is in terms of awareness, because I'm very aware of the emotions of people, and it's when is it appropriate to say something about that or not say something about that, react, respond. Something my uncle said to me was, "Fiona, always remember that most people are walking through life asleep, and that you're awake, you're aware in a way that others aren't." And that's where I think sometime back you and I once had a discussion about awareness, didn't we? I'm trying to remember what you asked me about that.
The thing that's intrigued me about all of this is you feel that you're actually inside a body, don't you? When you get an intense, you feel you're part of it.
It's not so much that you're inside the body; it's that you are the body. So if I focus on this gentleman sitting over there, if I focus on how he's sitting, it will start feeling as if I am him sitting there.
But what happens to your body when you?
I am him sitting there. So there's no. It's what happens. My body becomes the body. So for instance, if somebody's in a hairdresser having the haircut, and I'm watching it, I will start feeling like I'm that person sitting there and I'm being tugged out, and I'm not quite liking that, so I avert my gaze from it. But yet there's times when I will see a mother stroking a child's head, or a man stroking a woman's hair, and I will watch, because it's not for sexual pleasure, it's pleasurable, it's soothing, it's calming and relaxing, and I will watch that, for quite some time.
When you look in a mirror, when you actually look into a mirror, what do you see? Do you see yourself, or do you...
Yeah, I mean, I see what, so far as I reckon it's me, but there's times, funnily enough, I've had where there's two things, and this is the quite interesting, and I'll get back to that, is there's a difference between if I touch myself, you touch yourself, someone else touches you, there are differences in that. There's sometimes also differences in pressure and temperature. The example I was going to give was, one time I was on a bus in London, and I got a bit lost. I got on the wrong bus and was coming back. I got off at a stop where there was this hat and bag shop, and I thought, right, I'll go in, have a look at the hat and bags, and could kind of see the hat and bags, but there was a lady standing in front of me. So I said, excuse me, do you mind if I pass you? And she said, she just kind of didn't respond. So again, I said, excuse me, do you mind if I pass you? She didn't respond again, so I thought, right. If I just gently move forward and then just touch her shoulder or something, she'll know I'm there. And I walked slap bang into a mirror. It was me. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. So you asked about the mirror. But another time, this is a really odd one, was where I was, I'd finished university, come home, really tired, thought, all right, I'll lie down on the couch. Place will lock the door and everything, and I was lying there, falling asleep, and then I started to wake up, and I was aware of somebody doing this, my neck and my head, and I really felt spooked, and I thought, right, there's somebody in the house, what am I going to do? And I lay there, frozen, and then I thought, right, confront them, and I turned around and there was nobody there. And I figured out what it was. I'd been touching my leg, and the touch on my own leg was making me feel touch, as if someone else was touching me. So there's differences.
Do you feel your mirror touch has enhanced your creativity in any way? Because, I mean, you are quite a creative person, aren't you? I mean,
it has. I do take medication because I can get overload. I mean, obviously, if you've got people moving around, touching their faces, and especially when there's a lot of people, I can get an overload and get really agitated by that. So I do take medication to sort of, I suppose, subdue a little bit, or try and deal with the overload. But back to your question, James, what was your question on that one?
it was always whether it enhances your creativity.
It does. What I was going to say is, when I wasn't taking the medication, I just want to paint. I want to paint, and I write poetry about things I see. And I used to write on the wall at one point. I did something like 500 poems in 1 year. It's something that's just constantly there. And in the night, I'll wake up and I'll just write or want to paint a picture.
Well, I can relate to that because mine does the same. When I'm sitting there wallowing in it.
I sometimes wish there was a USB plug you can stick in and just let it all drain out. Yeah.
One thing I'm very interested in this, because I've got my own reasons for doing this. I mean, why did you agree to be studied in the first place? What if, to effectively open up, I mean, something so personal, and why did you do that? And can you see any benefit?
Okay, well, basically, the very first time I truly felt validated was when Michael Bannister did the tests and actually said, this is what it is. Because I had an experience in America where I'd witnessed somebody in a car park. You don't often see people punch another person. Well, I was sitting in a car and there was this fury going on between two men of a nicked car parking space, and one punched the other. Next thing, that was it. And my boyfriend at the time had come around and, Fiona, what's wrong? I'd passed out. Took me to hospital for tests. They thought it could have been a seizure. But all I'd seen was the punch, and I felt it. I said, look, to the neurologist at the time, I'm feeling touch when others are touched. I felt punched. I felt the punch, and he just said, that's peculiar. They couldn't place it, and I think maybe they didn't know at the time. And it was only when I came back to the UK from America that Michael Bannister did the test. So back to your question about why is it good? Well, it validates you as a human being. Everything you've gone through, from being taken into a church with strangers laying hands on you, all, not being believed when you say, well, that's happened to me, because as a child you felt that really did happen to you, and then someone saying, well, no, it actually happened to someone else, not to you. You're not telling the truth there. It's a very, so for me it's validating. I think it's very important because I don't experience boredom. When somebody says, I am bored, I look at them and think, how on earth could you be?
I know, same here, yeah.
How could you be? I mean, I don't understand, because everything's so intriguing. There's
Well, it makes you more aware, doesn't it? It makes you far more aware of everything and your surroundings, and makes you appreciate them more.
And the other thing is, I don't experience something like depression, and I know I can. If somebody says to me, they're feeling depressed, I empathise with it, obviously, and I can feel what they feel like when they're feeling sad and really in that black hole and down. But myself, I don't experience this, and partly it's because when I experience a sadness or experience I can locate it to a logical thing. So someone's passed away. When my mum took me to the church for the people to pray and lay hands, I felt deeply upset about that. That made me, for days on end, feel miserable. And she actually thought I had depression, but it was triggered by something that was happening around me. There's a logic to it, but I don't ever feel sadness without logic otherwise.
I'd love to ask you this, because we haven't got a lot of time here, but I'd love to ask you this, and it's just a quick answer. If you're looking at two people that are being intimate, okay, in real life or on TV, no, in real life, we'll use that one. And you're looking, and you carry on looking. Do you feel that's right, that's wrong? I mean,
I've often, well, this is the thing I've had to deal with is feeling guilty, by things you see. So you tend to look away, But the worst is, because this does happen sometimes, you can look at something and then you fall into a form of a daydream watching something happening, and then they turn and notice you've seen them, and they look at you as if to say, what you're looking at, and you feel awful because you didn't mean to. So most of the time I'm trying to avert what I see, because I don't feel it's right. I feel like I'm intruding in the space of your personal space. Because you do feel, if somebody's kissing another person, you still feel like you're being kissed. You do feel the touch of lips. It's like when somebody smokes. I don't like to look at people that smoke because I feel the warmth on not just my fingers, but my lips. And it's not nice.
I burnt myself on a coffee this morning, didn't I?
And I felt that.
Yeah, very weird.
Because
I did it on purpose.
I know you did, because we sneaked them in, we were meant to.
And I've got to ask you this as well. Because I've always been asked this, if a cure could be effected for this, would you consider it? Or, can you imagine living your life without mirror touch?
I wouldn't want to cure it. I just would never want to be walked into a church for people to lay hands on me. I just want to be left alone, allowed to make the choices I make, and be respected for that as much as I would respect the awareness levels of others. But I would never want to cure for it, because then wouldn't I experience things like being bored and, I wouldn't want to.
You mentioned as well once, because this is something that I find quite intriguing, about watching people eat. When you're watching somebody eat,
Yeah, that's a big one, because if someone's sitting with the plate food and they start to eat, I actually do feel like and I don't like to eat certain. Sometimes it's the colour, because reds and greens, they have different sort of sharpnesses to them. So I'd like to eat more my browns and yellowies and black. So I'll choose fruits that are pears and prunes rather than bite into an apple or strawberries, because I find strawberries quite sour actually, but that's mainly the colour. If I purify, which I do, I purify vegetables, because you've got to get your nutrients, haven't you? Purify vegetables, it goes browny and then it's fine. But watching people, it affects my appetite. And the other thing that is, if there's a lot of activities going on around me, like people, sounds and things, I can actually feel like I'm being pulled out of proportion. It feels like I move, and it affects my digestion. A lot of things, your stomach doesn't. I can get nauseous from things. And when I get overload, I feel a distinct change. There's times too, I mean, little things like I might pour boiling water into a cup, and I can be watching the hand that's pouring, and it's very strange. I will forget where this one is. And I burn myself sometimes. I have a little odd things that happen, but I don't know. That could just be general brain things that happen to anybody. You know, that you have that a moment. I don't know, that happens.
Would you have it taken away for half a day then?
For half a day?
Yeah, just to see what it's like.
I don't think you could take it away.
No, you couldn't. I'd love it.
See, this is the whole thing. You can't plan. Look, today I'm going to feel like you're feeling, because it's just there.
If you were offered the opportunity, though, the chance of taking it away for 20 minutes, would you like to experience life without it, is what I'm saying?
Would it take away permanently?
No, it'll come back.
I mean, I try, if it would help another person, or it will help society. Like, for instance, if they could come up with a drug that would stimulate that region you were showing to make it a bit more overactive in people that experience depression, so that, or tense boredom, so that they want to take drugs because they're bored, well, then I think it's a good thing, you know, because they're coming up with a means of making life better for others.
I'd love to be able to take it away for half a day.
If you were going to take it away and it would have a good outcome, yeah. But otherwise, no. But it would be good for society.
But do you have to plan your day, though? I mean, it must be amazing. You have to plan your day to avoid situations.
I do. In my day, try and avoid people. I try to stick with the familiar. I have routine. When my routine is suddenly broken, I can feel a bit agitated, because it's what you're exposed to, and you suddenly. So coming here, I was quite an anxious experience, because I'm coming to London. I'm coming to a part of London I'm not that familiar with. Don't know who I'm going to come in contact with. So I do prefer to know what I'm doing in my day. But yeah.
Tell me if you want it taken away for half a day. That's all I'm asking.
My mirror touch?
Yeah. Oh, I would love that somebody's able to take mine away, just to experience what life was like without it.
You want to experience what life is like without it. Yeah. But I have to survive. This is my survival. This is how I learn. When I went to university, how I learn is using I have multiple synaesthesia, but mirror touch is important to me when the lecturer is lecturing, because I never, this is something but I referred to textbooks very little when I was at university. I went to every lesson. I never missed a lesson. That's why I don't when I am in a study environment, because when I go to do the paper that's prepared by that lecturer, I remember him standing there, everything as if I am him, and I answer the question in that fashion. So for me, it's my learning, it's my survival on how to interact with people.
So what you're telling me is you don't want it taken away for half a day?
Not unless it's going to be for a beneficial purpose. Right. If it's solely for my own pleasure, why would I do that? Or for my own...
Curiosity.
For own curiosity.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to find out what it's like to be without it for a short time. Always have.
Always have. Well, I wouldn't want it out of curiosity, because I see too many people. This sounds awful, because I do feel different from others. But I see people going through life, and some they're really struggling with it. Now I struggle. We all struggle. But I feel like I deal with it in a certain way, and I feel if they had those tools, they may feel happier about life. So if you took that away, you'd be taking away a means of, rather than where Michael's studying it, you trying to find ways in which, how can it be beneficial for society, how can it be beneficial for others?
Right, well, I've finished now. It's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.